Alright, so I want us to talk about the sprint planning meeting. So this is the meeting which really kicks off your 2-week sprint if you're in a Scrum type process. And essentially the goal of this meeting is to have a sprint backlog, which is prioritized. And essentially you also want to create a burn down chart. So the burn down chart is essentially a tool which lets you track the progress of your sprint over the course of each day. So typically in geography, we have all of our sprint burn down charts located into one place. And you can see that they're essentially done either by Carlos or myself or any Scrum Master that joins the pool. So it's a very defined process. And for us, this is an Excel spreadsheet. So typically what we do at the beginning of the sprint is we verify if there's any holidays that fall into the sprint. So let's say New Year's or Good Friday, etc. We place them in here so that we're all aware that our developers are not available for the sprint. Typically, if you had 2 or 3 developers, that might not be such a big deal, but typically, if you're looking into 10 or more developers, it's an entire sprint for one person, so you are more conscious of the fact that there are holidays. We then ask people to notify us of how much time they are planning on spending in the sprint. The closer you are to 1, the better. However realistic. Some people do it part-time, some people take vacation, and so we reflect this, and we want to make sure that the amount of time that our team spends doing work is realistic and we don't overburden them with tasks. We then put the start date and end date for a sprint. In this case, the previous sprints, I want to say it specifically. The sprint was from the 9th of April to the 22nd of April. And then we had 5.4 developers between all of our developers assigned. The efficiency factor lets us know how effective our developers are at really doing the work. So they might be spending a lot of time in meetings, or they might be spending time learning other progress, or doing other things like code reviews, or treating other people in other projects, or they might be spending a lot of time doing release management. So typically, this is just a ratio of the time that they're really spending towards development, and you might have to learn how to tweak this for your team. At the end of this, you will essentially know how much days or units of work your team is able to produce towards actual development work for your clients. So let's say here 43.2. What you'll typically do with your clients is create the tasks that your client wants into the next sprint. And so you might assign the number of days from the product backlog meeting, if you do have the numbers, towards the time estimate. If you don't have the time estimate, let's say if it's a small bug, you might choose to do the estimate right there at the sprint planning meeting. And so you might just do a long list of the tasks that the client wants in terms of features, and then you might prioritize them with them. You have to take note that not all of the features or all of the tasks that the client wants to have may actually fit in the sprint. So here you'll get an overview of those tasks and estimates in terms of what can fit in the sprint. So typically here, in available time, you try to get the closest possible to 0, in which your team is fully allocated to doing development work, considering their efficiency factor. You always try to err on the side of positive assign time as opposed to negative assign time in order to sustain a suitable work rate. Here, if you're really wanting to track the velocity of your team, every day with the Kanban board. Then you can mark the completed task days for which your features were finished. Let's say a developer on the first day has finished one of their tasks, then you would mark it here. So let's say they use 5.4 days for the task that they were allocated to, then you mark 5.4. Here my computer is crashing. Yay. Okay. So maybe that's actually 6 because they finished all of the Jira bucket. The next day you might reach at the sprint planning meeting and they did MD001. We should find out. So now you're at 7. That's done. The next day they might have finished MD016, ability to find geography, so that's 8. Etc. until the end of the sprint. And you will be able to see the velocity of your team updated over time. It might not be the case where you're actually there to check the velocity every day, so we do encourage you to check velocity when you can. However, at the very minimum, please do track the velocity of your team at the sprint review meeting. So once the team agrees to the bucket of features assigned for your team, and that it's realistic, they might commit to a specific goal. So let's say here, it's the initial creation of the mapped data. It's a specific goal, or it might be something like creating the security module. And so the goal lets you communicate with other stakeholders, which might not be vested into terms of details and the specific stories and features that you're going to be delivering for your sprint, but they're interested to know what you're really working on. So that's where the goal can come in handy. What we'll typically do after the burn down chart is go back to your sprint. And let's say this MD052 was security model was assigned to your sprint. What we'll do here in the label is assign it to a specific sprint. So MD sprint, let's say, okay, this is an old sprint that I took, for example, 19. So sprint 19 mapping. And so we can assign it to your sprint. It's okay. This feature would be assigned to your sprint. And so we would do this with every feature that would be in our sprint backlog. And what this will let us do is when we go to issue, we can actually filter on the sprints that are assigned to our backlog in sprint 19. So this is what our sprint 19 looked like at the time where we actually did it. I just added this feature randomly for the security model. It's fictitious. However, it gives you a good idea of what this might look like in reality. Once this is done, typically what we do is we send it to clients just as a final confirmation of the feature that will be implemented in the next sprint. And then this gets them the opportunity to confirm that they will commit to not disturbing you in terms of new development or new features for the next 2 weeks. So they might log bugs, they might log problems or issues, or ask you to do more analysis work. However, your developers should be free to continue work for the next 2 weeks without interruption.